Keith, can you remember the first time you met Ayrton Senna and how that working relationship started?
Yeah, it was 1981 at Thruxton. I was working for a Brazilian magazine at the time, but I was a shy 21-year-old, and he was having his second ever car race that day, and I just followed him around, photographed him, but never said hello to him. And so anyway, the following weekend he was racing at Brands Hatch, and I walked into the paddock. He came up to me in his broken English, said, "Why you photo me?" And I said, "Because I work for a Brazilian magazine and they want pictures of Brazilian drivers racing in England." He goes, "You professional?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm 21 and this is my second year as a professional." And I said, "Why are you asking me these questions?" He said, "Because when I start winning races, I want to get some publicity and I want to send pictures and stories back to Brazil. And through getting publicity, I want to find a sponsor, because this year my father's paying for my racing." And then he said to me, "Would you be my photographer?" I said, "Yeah, as long as you pay me." You know, I was working for quite a few drivers, but, you know, it was all about the money at the time. And that day, he won his first ever car race.
Ooh. Along with being Ayrton's personal photographer, you were also his PR manager. How did that come about?
Well, that came about when I said, "You know, what is it you actually, you know, want to do? What's your ambition?" And he said, "I want to be an F1 driver." And I said, "Well, I want to be an F1 photographer. And I think with your talent, and if we could work together, you know, we could make it together." And I said, "I've been to a few Grand Prix and I've noticed that all the Formula One teams, they do press releases." And I said, "This has never been done before, but I'm thinking, why don't we do press releases for you? And we send them to all the Formula One team principals and all the magazines around the world." You know, I had all their contacts by this time. And he thought that was a great idea. So I designed his headed note paper with his helmet and all the Brazilian colours going across, and it said Ayrton Senna da Silva. And then underneath it said, "For further information, contact Keith Sutton." And of course that season in '82, you know, he was winning all these British and European races, and that's when the phone call started. I got home one day and my mother said, "There's been a call from you." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "His name's Bernie Eccleston. Do you know him?" I said, "Oh yeah, he's the boss of Brabham." So I dialed the number back, and this man at the end, I said, "Hi, it's Keith Sutton here." He said, "Oh, thank you for calling me back. And thank you for all the press releases and all the photos you've been sending me, this young Brazilian. He sounds quite quick." "Oh, he's amazing, Mr. Eccleston. Without a doubt, he'll be world champion. You know, he'll be in Formula One in a year and world champion in, 4 years. Well, that's why I'm calling you, Keith. I'd like to give him a test in the Brabham." "Oh, he'd be absolutely delighted with that, Mr. Eccleston. Yeah. Can you put me in touch with him?" So that's what I did.
You obviously spent a lot of time with Ayrton, especially in the early years. Is there a favourite moment you ever spent with him?
Yeah, when I look back, it was the second year, 1982. He'd come back to race in Formula Ford Championship and British and European. And we got to sort of August, and there was a chance of him clinching the championship in Denmark. So he wanted me there, and we went out together, we shared a room together, and that weekend was special because he won the race and he won the championship. And at the end of it, we all went out and celebrated.
You touched on there that you shared a room with Ayrton. Was he a tidy person in the room, or was he a messy person?
Tidy person, yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, very tidy. Meticulous, you know.
In 1984, after working with Ayrton for a few years, he asked you to be his personal photographer in Formula One, in which you turned down his offer. Why?
When he got to Formula One, it all got serious, and he'd got a lawyer and a manager, and he set up a company. And he said to me that we're going to employ you, and the company will pay you a salary, and you would take only pictures of me, no one else, and we would own all the copyright, which was a great honour. But at the same time, to go to a Grand Prix or to any race and just photograph one person, wasn't really me. When I turned him down, he was quite upset with me, and I don't think many people turned him down or said no. So that was kind of it, really.
So knowing what you know now about the career he had and went on to have, do you regret that decision?
No, I think it was the right decision, because obviously it went on in 1985 to set up Sutton Photographic, and I employed my brother Mark, and we went on to, to have what I would say is the largest independent motorsport photographic agency in the world.
Out of all the photos you've taken of Ayrton Senna, is there one that stands out as a personal favourite?
It has to be the photograph I took of him after he'd won the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. I recce'd this room next to the podium just before the start, which was open. And then I went in there and I saw a window, and I opened up the window and I looked down and there was the podium. I thought this would be perfect for the race winner. And of course he won the race and he was down there. And I shouted at him and he looked up at me and he sprayed the champagne towards me, and I knew at that moment, I'd got some incredible pictures of him. And you have to remember, in those days, we were shooting film, so we didn't actually know until we got back and processed the film, what we got. But I took more or less a whole roll, and there was one in particular that just was sensational. Oh God, there wasn't any height in that at all, was there? At least I hit it.
Favourite F1 livery of all time?
Any car that was painted in John Player Special.
Favourite helmet design?
Oh, I'm biased. It's got to be Senna's.
Who is a photographer that inspired you?
He was a German photographer called Rainer Schegelmilch.
What's one photo you wish you'd taken?
Definitely the photograph taken by Stephen T at the 1985 Portuguese Grand Prix when Ayrton Senna had won his first Grand Prix.
Who was your idol growing up?
Jackie Stewart.
Give me one word to describe Ayrton Senna.
Legendary.
Give me your Mount Rushmore of Formula One, your top 4 drivers of all time.
Senna, Jackie Stewart, Alonso, Vettel.
Keith, what originally got you into motorsports?
It was my father, Morris. He was a massive race fan, and he used to go to Alton Park with all his mates, sit me in racing cars, stand me by racing cars. But he only ever took one picture of me with a racing driver, and that was on the 31st of August 1963. I didn't realise at the time how significant that picture was going to be, but in 1965 my father showed me the picture and he said, "Keith, that driver you stood next to, his name's Jackie Stewart. Well, I'll follow his career and see how he gets on." In those days we were very fortunate because there was a non-championship Formula One race at Alton Park called the Gold Cup. So the following year, 1965, Jackie Stewart turned up in his overalls with just Dunlop on his overalls, no sponsors. And I had my picture taken with him. And I followed his career. And that kept my interest in motorsport.
How did Ayrton's death in 1994 affect you personally?
It wasn't just Ayrton's death, it was Roland Ratzenberger the day before. And then you go back to the Friday, I was there, I actually photographed Rubens when he had his crash. So all three things happened, each day, and it was a pretty horrific weekend. It was probably one of the worst weekends of my career.
Can you remember where exactly you were when you found out about Ayrton's passing?
I decided for the race, because I still wasn't in the right mind, and I would go to the furthest corner away from the start, which was Rivazza. And there was only one other photographer there, just the two of us. And then suddenly everything went quiet. And this other photographer went onto the platform where the cameraman was to look into the screen, and he saw what was going on. And then he just disappeared and ran off. And I wondered what had happened, so then I asked the cameraman what's happened, and he told me to look, and I thought, oh no, it's not good. And I just stayed there. Obviously we photographed the podium, and then it was a matter of getting to the airport. There was a charter plane that evening to take us back. We were all in the restaurant, and that's where we got the news from the waiter.
Can you remember your last conversation with Ayrton?
Yeah, it was on the Thursday of Imola. He was there. That day was sunny, and everyone was happy and smiling, and he was chatting with Rubens Barrichello and Christian Fittipaldi, all the Brazilians together, and he just came along and said, "Hi, how are you? How's the business?" And that's the sort of conversation we used to have over the years. He was always asking about the family, because he knew mum and dad, and he knew my brothers. And yeah, it wasn't too much of a conversation, but that was the last time I spoke to him.